If you want.
Hey, welcome back to the Dusty Wheel. I'm your host, the Innkeeper, and this is our live call and talk show all about the Wheel of Time. Tonight, or I guess I should say today, we'll be discussing all of the Season 1 episodes of the Wheel of Time on Amazon Prime, breaking down all the news, speculation, and some leaks, and figuring out if we can piece together exactly how this is going to happen, hopefully in 2021 when the show premieres. But before we do that, before I introduce my guest, I want to remind everyone this upcoming WoT Wednesday, we're talking about Madeline Madden. Yes, my guest, Craig Hanks from Legendarium, and Lee Butler from Tor.com, we're going to do an actor deep dive. We're look into all the stuff that Madeline's done already, talk about where we think she's going to be strong, maybe where we kind of question if she's going to be able to pull off this character of Egwene. And then the following WoT Wednesday, we are back with one of your favorite episodes. That's Robert Jordan's Notes. This version is going to be the fan questions. That's right, this one is for you. We've already been collecting fan questions, but if you are wondering, does something exist in the notes, please reach out to us on social media. We'll put some posts out this week. We're going to dive into that and literally just cover all of those questions in that episode. So, hope you catch us on those WoT Wednesday shows. Now, without further ado, let me welcome today's guest. Welcome to the show, everyone. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, that was pretty efficient. Well done. Well, up at our top left, we have Geeky. Geeky, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Hi, I'm good. I'm excited.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. Why don't you tell the viewers what you have coming up next on your YouTube channel?
So next I have planned a really short Block 4 video covering what we knew before the shutdown, and covering bringing in a little bit of what we learned recently.
Awesome. Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. And Jen Iskro from the Takaranriad Showcast. How are you doing, Jen?
Great, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So what's Takaranriad have coming up next?
Next Friday we are recording an episode, actually with a special guest, which is the gentleman to my diagonal, trying to point correctly. John from WoT UP is our special guest. So if you're a patron of ours, you can listen live on our Discord this Friday coming up. If not, it'll be out next week. And we're just going to be talking about how the castings have affected the way we might feel about the characters now. So that's our discussion.
Awesome.
And then the week after that, we're all going to be appearing on panels in SpoilerCon. So we got a lot coming up in the next few weeks.
Fantastic. You can catch all these links, by the way, in the description of this video. Go follow all of these individuals. They do put out some fantastic WoT content. And as I refer to them, they are an expert panel. And the next expert on this panel, Adam Whitehead, Wertzone, and Dragonmount. Adam, how you doing?
Oh yeah, not doing too bad.
So what's your next up on your blog, if you will? What are you working on, either on personally or for Dragonmount?
Well, on my personal blog, we're doing some stuff for, obviously you've got the new Dune film coming out, so we're doing some coverage of previous Dune adaptations and stuff on there. On my other blog, the Atlas of Ice and Fire, I've got to resume work on the Wheel of Time Atlas, which is a project I was sort of doing last year and got sidetracked from, so I really need to get back on top of that. You've reached the Shadow Rising, which requires a lot of maps being made for it. So
Awesome.
I need to get back to that project.
That's fantastic. That's great to hear. I love the maps you've done so far. And then our last guest, but not least, John. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you? I'm glad to be back. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it's good to see your face, man. So what do you have coming up on WoT UP next?
I've 2 videos coming out this week, maybe more. If there's news, I'll do more. But the first one is I have some inklings of who may be playing Morgaze. So I'm going to do a video on that, on speculation.
Wow.
And the other one is about the Forsaken. How many of them are not going to make the cut for the show? Because, they either got to beef them up or cut some.
Sounds good. That's awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to all of that content. But today we're here to talk about Season 1 of The Wheel of Time, episode breakdown. I'm expecting a lot of interesting speculation from all of you. So why don't we jump into this? And while we begin, we're going to be talking about blocks 1 through 4. That's right. If you think about blocks 1 through 4, that's 8 episodes, 2 episodes per block. And if you're wondering what is a block when we talk about this, I thought I'd have Adam give us just a quick summary. Like, what if viewers have no idea what the block system is? Can you kind of explain it for them?
Sure. So basically, the block system. This is something that's different from the old way of doing TV. So the old network way, the CBS, NBC way of doing it, is you'd film each episode. You'd film one episode a week, then the next episode would be the next week, the episode after that would be that week, and it'd be the whole episode. You'd film it very, very quickly. With the modern streaming era, high quality cable dramas, they film the entire season, but they divide the season up so that the scenes they're shooting make the most sort of economic sense. To quote my notes here, so the block system is basically where several episodes are combined into one solid block of filming and production, which will last many weeks, maybe a month to 2 months. And in that time, they'll film a certain number of episodes. And what they'll do is they'll arrange the filming so they're filming the same scenes, the same sets, the same actors in the way that makes it most efficient for shooting. And it varies by show, but we know with the Wheel of Time that the blocks are 2 episodes each. So block 1 is episodes 1 and 2, block 2 is episodes 3 and 4, and so on. And they share, they'll share a director, they'll share behind the scenes crew members, and they'll be working specifically on those blocks whilst the crew members for the next blocks are prepping those blocks for shooting. So it allows the production to move smoothly across the whole season.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much for explaining that. That's something I have to listen to it almost a couple times to really capture exactly what they're trying to do. But it makes a lot of sense. And for those of you that don't know, Geeky has actually done 3 of these and is working on a 4th. And if you have not watched these, watch them after this discussion because there's still plenty of things that we won't cover that she covers in those block videos. But one of the most important thing that Geeky has done in those block videos is pulled out the timeline of the actors that we believe are involved in these. So I want to show an image, and let's start breaking down block 1, episodes 1 and 2. This is what you're seeing on screen. The viewers are seeing block 1 characters. We have Rand, Egwene, Matrim, Nynaeve, Perrin, Lila, Bran, Meryn, Tam, Natty, Abel, and the Cawthon sisters, Daze, Sen, and Padden, Fane. We have Master Hightower, Moiraine, Lan, Eamon Valda, and Geoffrey Bornhold. That's who you're seeing here. These are the known people that we believe are involved in episodes 1 and 2. So let's maybe start with you, John. Knowing this about these characters and everything you've known about this block, what does this tell you as far as what ground they're covering?
Well, it's hard to say for sure because I fully expect extra scenes. I fully expect things that we don't see in the books, and I fully expect stuff to be cut. But for sure, we know we're going to see White Cloaks, and I don't think we're just going to see Eamon and Geoffrey. I think we'll see maybe even Lord Captain Commander. We may see a few other people there too. But 100% Hightower's there. They're leaving Terran Ferry. We know that for sure. And we know that from the metadata stripped from poor Brandon Sanderson's picture that he put out in his newsletter that Hightower supposedly dies as well. So that's supposed to be a big change from the books. But I think
John,
that...
let me pause you just one second. As a reminder, I can't imagine you're here. I can't imagine you're here for an episode breakdown if you don't want to hear spoilers. But let's just remind everybody, you brought up a good point. Taylor, you can throw that up. Yes, this show will contain spoilers about the show, mostly. We're not going to try to break down A Memory of Light or anything, but we're going to be talking about what we've learned. So John just brought up one piece of this, which is we've learned that Master Hightower drowns, and that we're going to see that in actually episode 2. So sorry for cutting you off there, John. Keep going.
No, that's all right. And that's unless someone was having some fun with the metadata, maybe.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's right.
Which I mean, I would do if that was me. But for sure, we're going to see them leave the 2 rivers. What's interesting is we don't see a whole lot to do with Berlin there at all, as far as the characters go, because we don't see Min in that block.
Yep.
So that could be another big change.
It's possible. I mean, Geeky, do you think that it's possible that that Kai Alexander was part of this block? We just don't know.
I mean, it's always possible. She was on Game of Thrones, so she is very familiar with crazy fandoms and is very cautious when it comes to those sorts of things. So it is always possible, but it definitely doesn't seem like it, given the information that we have so far.
Yeah, right. That's the interesting thing. We're basing this on what we've learned so far. So as far as we're concerned here, there's no Kai Alexander who is playing Min in this. That doesn't mean Berlan's out necessarily. And I mean, Jen, how do you feel about this? I mean, obviously, Eamon's Field, we're obviously gonna see some of the iconic scenes, the way the books begin, right? We know Rand and Tam, Westwood. We know Pat and Fane coming into Emond's Field. We know these things are going to happen, but is there anything that you know from what you've studied about, locations and such, that we don't know is going to happen, or that you want to add into this discussion?
I think, like, as far as how far they're going to get.
Yeah, what's your
because
anticipation there?
Some of our locations obviously we're going to be in Emond's Field for a while because there's a lot of people that have speaking. It looks like they have speaking roles that almost the whole town basically. So I think we're going to be spending a good part, if not the whole first episode, in Emond's Field. But then we have a lot of the river, a bridge. So that to me is, when they're traveling, I think they'll have a lot of nice locations. And then we also have a church in this block. So to me, I thought maybe by the end of episode 2, we might be getting to Shadar Logoth. Because that to me could be the building that they kind of camp out in there. That's where my mind
interesting.
is going with that.
Oh, okay. I had never, and I had never actually thought about Shadar Logoth involving that church that you're mentioning, but that absolutely could be. That's an interesting point there. Adam, anything else we're missing here? We're talking about the bridge. There's been a lot of images that have been leaked about that. There's we know that there's obviously going to be some traveling there. We know they're leaving Emond's Field in these first 2 episodes. There's no way they can get to Terran Ferry, which we know is going to happen unless they leave. But have you thought about that church, those church images? I mean, do you have anything else here we want to add from a speculative standpoint about where they might end up?
Well, from what I recall, I believe the church images, they actually covered up the window, so I don't think it's going to be a church in the episode. Right. I think it's going to be more of a grand stone building, which I think would match sort of Shadar Logoth very, very well. So that to me sounds like that's probably what that location is going to be. I mean, the biggest, I think, question mark is about what happens in episode 2. I think episode 1 is going to be very obviously Winter Night, the Trolloc attack. Tam's fever dreams, pretty much most of what we see in the book at the start. And then I think episode 2, the question is, are they going to Bear Lon? It doesn't seem likely at the moment. It's one of those difficult things. I think 2 and 3, where the breakdown of what events are happening where in those episodes seems to me to be quite up in the air. I've got an idea of what's happening in sort of 4, but 2 and 3, it feels like you could put the break pretty much anywhere.
Yeah,
so you could end 2 actually then getting to Shadar Logoth, and then episode 3 is the Shadar Logoth episode, or all of Shadar Logoth could be in episode 2, and they sort of rush through it a little bit more. So it's sort of difficult to tell, I think.
Yeah, that's.
So
go ahead, John. No, go for it.
I was just going to talk about the church. I had a little different take on the church. I don't think it's Shadar Logoth at all. I think that's where we're going to first meet the White Cloaks, because we know they covered up the windows, and we know that they created a new door for them, for the church. Yeah. As far as I know. So could that be a big sunburst door, maybe?
Yeah, I love it. That's where I went today as I was thinking about this, John. So I'm glad you brought that up. I did wonder if when we look at, we have Geofram, or I wonder if and Aemon, I wonder if that means we're going to see more of. Maybe they're going to give us more in-depth understanding of the White Cloaks before we run into them. I kind of Sorry, I wanted to cut you off there. I wasn't sure if you were going to add anything else there, John.
No, I'm good.
Geeky, do you kind of lean either way on this, Shadar Logoth, or this relating to the White Cloaks, or is it something else in your mind that you think that this revolves around when it comes to the church?
I had never thought of it possibly being related to the White Cloaks. It's such an old-looking building, though, that I feel like there would be a lot more usable buildings in the Czech Republic that they could use for the White Cloaks. So I think I was leaning more towards Shadar Logoth.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And so maybe I'll go around the room. And those of you that are watching us on Twitter and Facebook, we'd love to have you over on YouTube, but really appreciate you watching. Those of you that are in chat, though, I want to ask you here, thumbs up or thumbs down as far as, are we getting to Shadar Logoth by the end or by episode 2 at some point? Thumbs up if you believe we are going to end up in Shadar Logoth. Thumbs down if you think that we're not going to get there in episode 2. And let me go around really quick and just a quick. John, you think we're definitely hitting Shadar Logoth? Yeah. Adam, you're feeling Shadar Logoth definitely by episode 2. Jen?
Yes.
Yeah, and Geeky, definitely Shadar Logoth. So I feel like there's some consensus here as far as we're going to hit Shatter Logoth at this point. Maybe skip Berlan, and maybe that's where the difference is. I kind of wondered if we might hit Berlan, but potentially not go in. Maybe have a White Cloak moment outside of Berlan, and they have to move on because something happens. In other words, something that kicks them on, but they don't get another town. Does anyone here believe we're going to touch it? Jen, is that how you're feeling?
I have an idea about Berlan.
Okay.
If I can, am I allowed to touch the next block yet?
Yeah, you can lean into it, and we'll throw, and after your comment,
Okay.
we'll throw the image up about block 2.
Okay, I was gonna move Berlan to past Shadar Logoth and only have Rand and Matt go to Berlan.
Wow. Okay.
Because we
Interesting.
have Min in block 3, which you'll see in the graphic.
Oh, it's so interesting. Yeah. Geeky, do you like this idea? Do you like this idea?
It was an idea I thought of, but that I was gonna say I could be wrong. I know I say that a lot, but I never want to say that I know for sure when I don't. Because I did actually some digging after I posted my block 2 video about Kae, and she was involved in some other project, I think, that was filming around that time. So that could have been it. But I do also like the idea of I like the idea of only Matt and Rand running into her. And then if she then has the vision about the dagger, that would be interesting for viewers because there would be no way she would know about the dagger and Matt would have already grabbed it at that point. So that might be an interesting thing to bring up.
Yeah, fascinating. I love hashtags. I love the hashtags in chat, like give us Berlan, hashtag give us Berlan. I love that. So is there anything else before we move on that we really haven't covered as far as locations or something interesting that came out of episode 1 and 2 block? There's one at least I'm thinking about, but let me ask you first. Is there something that's like we just haven't covered that might be interesting speculation for everyone watching?
That we're going to see Beltane.
So, why don't you bring that up? Because that's
well, Wraith has said recently on Twitter, for I'm pretty sure everybody watching probably has already seen his responses to the wine screening when they released the teaser, but he said that he didn't know if it was a spoiler or not, but we would see about Beltane. Now, in the books, we don't see it really, but in the show, it would make a lot of sense to see it either before the Emond's Field people leave and the attack still happens winter night, and then we see Beltane the next day kind of muted. Everybody's kind of like upset a little bit with all stuff, but it shows the resilience of the Two Rivers people. It starts to build up the way they live. Or maybe the attack happens during Beltane and not winter night, which is another thing too.
Yeah, I kind of wondered if they might switch it to like, Beltane happens and then that night they basically is, if they call that, somehow winter night or something to that effect, or, if they want to keep that. Because I know that Rafe wanted winter night, so but I guess we're getting the events of winter night. That seems more, or at least some of them, it seems somewhat clear to us. The one that I was thinking of, John, was the DP for episodes 3 and 4 and 7 and 8 showed up during this block. And this is also, we get an image, I think, who put that image out? Was it Rafe that showed us that image of Rand kind of standing? They're working on Rand on Yosha Stradowski.
In Tarwin's Gap, you mean?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. There's a mountain behind him. He's by himself. It kind of looks, everyone talked about this maybe being Tarwin's Gap, but it didn't make sense for this timing. However, Geeky pointed out that, the DP for episodes 3 and 4 and 7 and 8 came out and was there that day. So my thought was maybe he was out there and that was related to Tarwin's Gap. So yeah, I'm absolutely now strongly believing that from on the speculative side of things. Anything else other than those two pieces that came out of block 1 that would be, interesting to note before we move on to block 2?
Oh, I have one more thing.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Geeky. You can go ahead and then Jen.
I was going to say it's more the lack of Tom in block 1.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then we can talk about that in block 2. But go ahead, Jen.
No, I was going to say, too, that there were wolves filming in block 1, too.
Yes.
Okay,
so I was thinking maybe they would be like, he would just kind of start to sense them and you maybe see them a little bit like out there. I don't know if we get too into it, but it might be just the beginning of him starting to sense the wolves.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, I wonder if we see Elias way earlier than expected with the wolves. Maybe.
Yeah, this
I don't
is.
even know if we have him.
This is yeah.
I don't
The
even know if
wolves.
he's in it.
The wolves
He
add a little
better be
wrinkle,
there.
right? They add a little wrinkle. However, maybe the wolves are related. That's an earlier scene that's we're going to see in episodes 3 and 4 potentially. They might have just they might have the wolves earlier, be filming something related that they're going to use later. And maybe I'll ask you this, Adam, as far as Tom not being involved. It doesn't seem like it that we know in episodes 1 and 2. How do you feel about that as far as changing the order of things?
I mean, that's interesting. I mean, with a TV show, you always have the thing that introducing major characters is always a bigger deal than it is in a book. You have to establish the character visually and spend some time explaining to the audience who these people are. So, I mean, separating out character introductions isn't unusual, taking characters who all show up in one place and then they turn up over a slightly longer period of time. I mean, you would expect Tom to be there, especially if he's exiting the story in season 1, book 1, where he does in the book. It's kind of, because he's not going to be there for the entire story or the entire season anyway, it's almost like, well, why wouldn't you introduce him earlier and have more Tom material? But again, I think something which I think hasn't been discussed with being that's a huge amount is to what degree they're going to be really changing things and compressing things down to fit into the number of seasons they think might be likely. So they might be making much bigger changes and thinking, well, we can have Tom in this doing this instead of what he does in the books, or we're taking his like book 1 and book 3 and book 4 storylines and combining them in some fashion. Just sort of like an example. So I'd have expected to see Tom in 1 and 2, and him apparently not being involved is surprising, I think.
Yeah, it's certainly a change, and maybe we'll go around here and ask everyone before moving on to block 2. I think this will be fun for people in chat. And if you happen to be watching us on Facebook and Twitter, I hope you've enjoyed this sneak peek into this episode. If you want to see the rest of it, come on over and join us on YouTube. We'll continue on here for the next hour talking all about the speculation and news related to season 1 episodes. We're happy to have you. And for those of you who are still there, hope you like this video so other fans of the Wheel of Time can find us right now, thanks to YouTube's algorithm, however that works. The more fans that like it, the more fans that can find us. So if you're enjoying this, please do. And I want to maybe go back to you, Jen, on this idea of Tom, if not now, like if not in Edmonds Field, where do you think, and where are you gonna? And this will jump start us into block 2, but where's a good spot to insert Tom?
I thought they were going to be meeting him also in Barrelon. Well, Rand and Matt meet him by himself. But I do think that would have to be in episode 3 because of what we know. He's only in that one block. So I feel like we have to get the maximum amount of him if he's exiting the show in the same way that he exits in the book. Otherwise, why would he do what he does if he doesn't know them that well? So yeah, I think I was having them meet him like right after Shadar Logoth, after they split up.
I love this idea. Maybe he's on the boat. Or we don't get the boat.
Is there a
right?
boat?
Yeah, is there a boat? Exactly. Maybe there's not a boat. Maybe you're right.
What is there?
Maybe they split up, and I love this idea that Tom comes in and meets them and then travels with them for a bit until we get, Whitebridge or some, disconnect from them. So I love that idea a lot. And we'll get into more speculation about Tom here. Why don't we do this? Why don't we jump into block 2? Here we are. Block 2. These are the characters from block 2. We have who we would expect here: Rand, Egwene, Matrim, Nynaeve, Perrin, Moiraine, Lan. But yes, now we know that the actor playing Tom will be involved. We actually know the actors playing Master Grinwell and Mistress Grinwell are going to be involved. We do know that Logain and Kareen, Nagashi, and Steppen are also involved. Now, if you're looking at this image, you'll see that some have a yellow tinge and some have a red tinge. The yellow tinge is related to the fact that some of these characters, we think they're possibly involved in this block, but we're not totally sure. And then the red, what would you say this geeky area for red? You'd call is it just kind of our speculation because we have one or maybe we have a slight reason to believe they're involved, but we don't know for sure.
Yeah, I think for me, I never want to rule anything out. So, these are the people that it's possible they were there. I give more reasons in my video as to why Helena Westerman is there. For the White Cloak actors, we assume that there's White Cloaks in the story, so we don't know if those actors in particular may show up. And then I really had no information on Swan's actress at the time. Yeah, so it's possible, but if you're betting, I wouldn't exactly bet money on it.
Yes, I think this was what's interesting about this, and I'll read these off. The yellow in yellow we have Rayan, Ajah, or how do you ever say Isla? Says Isla, Aram, Leandrin, Min, Alana, and Ivan. And then in red we have Lila Ibarra, which is a whole story. Which, if you don't know about that, you can look that up online. Imanvalda, Geoffrim, Bornhald, Swan, Lana, and Dana, who we still don't know who Dana is. So, but what's interesting is if you look at the ones we do know that are off to your left, the ones I read off at the beginning, there does seem to be some movement of the plot and events. So let's start breaking into this idea. And maybe since I started out, John, when I started off with you first last time,
Sure.
maybe I'll go to Geeky area in this. Block 2, what do the actors and characters involved in this Block 2 tell you about what you think is going to happen in episode 3 and 4? And to
sorry,
to you,
me
Geeky
again.
area. Yeah. No, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Geeky area.
I brain farted again. Can you ask the question again? I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
sure. No worries. So what is it, all of the actors that you had put in the timeline and you'd kind of broken down when it comes to Block 2, episodes 3 and 4, when you look at all of them, what does it tell you about the events that we can see from the books that we think will happen during these episodes?
So to me, what stands out most is they are definitely going to bring Logain more to the forefront and show us more what's going on with him versus just hearing rumors and then jumping to the meeting where Rand sees him in Camelin. And it looks like they're bringing in some of the Aes Sedai that we know will come into play later in the story, like Alana, possibly Leandrin, and maybe what's her name, Karine Nagashi, which was the interesting thing because she is not in the Eye of the World at all.
Yeah, what you've just brought up is really important. Logain and the Aes Sedai start playing a bigger role, and obviously Tom and the Grinwells, which I love that the Grinwells are part of this. Jen, what does that tell you? So other than Logain taking a larger part and the Aes Sedai also, what else do you see happening then because of this, because of these actors in the next 2 episodes?
You could see the Tinkers are there too. So obviously Perrin and Egwene meet up with the Tinkers. And so I guess they're getting all the way to, at least they're getting to the Grinwell. So they're definitely traveling pretty far along that road.
Yeah,
towards Camelin.
It's the breakup, right? We're getting it feels like,
Yeah, we're definitely getting, yeah.
They're getting broken up. How much do you think we're going to see of that, though, Jen, as compared to Logain and the Aes Sedai? Like, do you see this a half and half? What do you see happening here?
I think we're going to get more of the main cast than we will of the Aes Sedai, but I think we're kind of we'll get I think we're going to get a scene where they're maybe preparing to go after him and kind of explaining who he is. But then I also think we are going to get a battle scene between the Aes Sedai and Logain. I think we're going to see them capture him in this block. Because I think that Peter Franzen had mentioned that he was filming a battle scene that takes place around this time in the shooting. I'm pretty sure that would be what that is.
Yeah, so that's you just brought that up. That's a really interesting point. Because I saw John kind of lean back, so I want to. John seems really excited about this notion of Tell me, John, what did you want to say right then, or what did you want to concur? I guess with Jen.
Well, 100% he's in the battle scenes. He mentioned it, but we don't know what it could be. So either my take on it is we're going to see one of two things. We'll see flashbacks to New Spring. We may see some of the Battle of the Shining Walls, which is possible, although I don't think super likely. But I think that maybe Karine is no longer a New Spring character. I think they'll bring her to the forefront and have her as an Eye of the World character and have her help with, going after Logain and whatnot there. And there's been so much speculation that Peter is, we know he's a warder, but everyone seems to think he's Elias. So maybe we see her die and we get to see what happens to the warders afterwards and the wolves save him. That's why the wolves are there as well. I don't know.
That's interesting. So you're thinking maybe they'll merge those characters potentially in some way. I think
they're going to merge a lot of characters.
I hadn't thought about Elias becoming because Steppen, right? Yeah, you're saying Peter Franzen is basically Elias, or takes that role. That's interesting.
Take the role, yeah.
I hadn't thought about that. I'm kind of curious. What does chat think about this? If you're watching us here, thumbs up if you like this idea that Steppen where Peter Franzen's character will also play this Elias role, and we won't get Elias. We'll just get them merged into Steppen here. Thumbs up if you like it. Thumbs down if you're like, no, I don't agree with John. John's wrong. John's crazy.
I'm usually wrong, just so everyone's aware.
So Adam, what stands out to you most from this block, these 2 episodes? Maybe those actors, events, or locations. Is there anything here that you're like, we're not talking about, but this is an important piece to these 2?
Well, I mean, had several ideas came up. One idea, this isn't actually mine. This is from Jason at Dragonmount, but he had the sort of theory that maybe Dana isn't Dana Grinwell, but it's Dana Bornhold, and that they've actually gender swapped her character, because that does seem like a very, very similar name, and she's turning up at roughly the same time as Geoffrey Bornhold. So that was one idea that I kind of quite liked. I thought that would be an interesting approach to go with.
Yeah.
One idea I did have, almost sort of like fan theory level, but I'm not sure whether they do it this early in the series, would be to have episode 4 not really focusing on Rand and the rest of the regular cast very much at all, and it's pretty much all Logain's story. So you cut away and you have almost a completely separate episode, which is all about Logain and his story, him being the Dragon Reborn. Maybe you get a sense of his backstory, him believing he can, discovering he can wield the one power, because obviously that's information that then becomes useful as a reference point later on. And then episode 4 is almost then like a standalone story. It's all about that ending in his capture and with the big battle sequence we've heard about. If it was later in the series, I think that's much more likely, but I do wonder, would they want to move away from the established cast when they've only been around for 3 episodes? So maybe they're mixing the stories together.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
And then and then the last thought I had about merging characters, if you wanted to be really, really bold, I'm not sure if this is too crazy or too big, but maybe merge Elias and Tom, and make Tom and Elias the same character. Because
wow. Okay, yeah.
I'm not sure if that's too.
I love it.
That's too
I haven't heard that yet.
or even workable, because you got to think, well, can he be a Gleeman when he's got this wolf thing going on? But then thinking they could probably work around that.
I love. I don't know why I love this, but I love Tom as a wolf brother. Oh man, that's fantastic. I haven't heard that speculation yet. So that's another one for chat. Do you prefer? I guess thumbs up if you prefer this idea that Tom would be Elias over the idea that Steppen, the warder to Karine Nagashi, would be Elias. Or thumbs down if you're like, no way, none of these ideas, these are all terrible. So yeah, some of these things you just brought up, the Dana Bornhall, I absolutely love that idea. Part of me is like, they didn't do it, but I wish they had. I don't know why. I think they haven't done it, but for me, I think she's one of the traveling people. I think she's tied in with Aram. I think she's maybe Aram's sister. But what's interesting is if you look at the map of these events, right? And we think about the titles of those episodes. We have A Place of Safety as episode 3, which absolutely maps really well to everyone breaking up, which it seems like we're getting. We're seeing more White Cloak involvement. We're seeing the wolves come in. We're seeing the traveling people. If Geeky has done an amazing job of kind of tracking, that Maria Doyle Kennedy was certainly there in Prague, in this block. So there's reason to believe that we're definitely going to see the traveling people. And so the splitting up happens, and you brought up something important here, Adam, which is the Dragon Reborn, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Isn't that the title to episode 4? Or am I
4, yeah.
So the Dragon Reborn and seeing Logain in this block makes absolute sense. So you tie in the battle sequence that we're talking about. John, we brought this up. It seems to make sense because otherwise it's really hard to imagine that we are getting Karine coming up into the present potentially here. And so we're seeing the battle that's relating to Logain, and that we're actually going to have this whole sequence be more about Logain. Do you believe this, Geeky? Do you think that is what we're getting, which is more of a focus in maybe episode 4 on Logain and that whole sequence, and kind of stepping away from our main crew?
I think so. The Korean part being brought into the present, that was something I think we started theorizing recently when Alvaro responded to Peter Franzen's video about him not having his axe near his head.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I always see you with an axe, I think is what he said.
Yes. So it's it's a strange change. I think we're expecting New Spring flashbacks, but I think it helps if it's a good way to flesh out the battle, flesh out that character, flesh out how Aes Sedai and channeling and all the bonding and everything works, using a character where her death isn't going to impact the main story so much. But yeah, I definitely think that's going to be a battle with Logain. And I think I like Adam's idea where episode 4 will be heavily focused on Logain and that story, going along with the Dragon Reborn title.
Yeah, you brought up an interesting piece, and I know people that are watching maybe haven't been following all the news and haven't watched all of Geeky Area's stuff on breaking this down. Why we believe that Kareen Nagashi is not going to be a flashback to 20 years ago has a lot to do with the fact that Alvaro Morte and Peter Franzen have this interaction on social media. If they're meeting each other, then her warder's clearly in the future, unless we're getting like Kareen dies 20 years ago and Stepan is actually Elias and he's into now he's, you know what I mean? Like, I guess that could happen, but it feels like unless they're doing something like that, where she died a long time ago and he left and now he's a lone wolf, if you will, but he's still somehow involved in the battle with Alvaro. That doesn't make any sense to me. But then we are seeing that. I mean, Jen, are you on board with this idea that we're talking about, which is we're going to get Logain's story here. This is where they're going to dig into him. And we are seeing this kind of fast forwarding of Kareen and into the, I guess, current time frame.
Yeah, definitely. I think like what we just said about Kareen dying, not like, so we can see an Aes Sedai die, but it's not anybody that wasn't going to be dead already. Like, it's not going to impact the story, but we get to see it. We get to see like how serious it can be. So I like that they just chose somebody that was already dead in the story.
Why the belief that maybe Kareen is going to die? I guess maybe we should answer that to viewers. Like, it sounds like all of us are like, yeah, Kareen's dead.
I think she's not in the.
Why is it we
the
believe
rest
that?
of? I think that she's not, or she wasn't in Prague for the rest of the filming. I think that's why.
Yeah. Go ahead.
She had commented that she so this was in November, December, I can't remember, but she had made a comment to somebody else that she was in Prague November and she's scheduled to be there December and January, but she didn't say anything further than that. And by February, I believe she posted on Instagram about something relating to a new project. So it seemed like she was definitely done by then.
Gotcha. She's certainly done with filming whatever she was filming and she's moving on. But another reason I think comes when we jump into block 3, which is we still have Peter Franzen involved in the show. Right, so Kareen's gone, but Peter's there, and so there is this feeling like maybe that is demonstrating the cut. Like they've cut something out here, and maybe it is that she's died. I hadn't considered that she died and he lives, so that's been a new thing as I watched the block videos and I've heard you all speak here, which is, maybe they will go into the bond a little bit more. Is there anything else from this second block that we're ignoring? I mean, from a location standpoint, anything of interest to bring up to fans about how we kind of think block 2, episode 3 and 4 will play out?
So John wants to bring up Kate Franz.
Let's do it.
So yeah, Kate Franz. She's my pick for Elaine, 100%. And she was there during this time frame. So it's possible. I did a video on it, and Geeky Area actually helped me quite a bit with it. Thank you so much for that, with time frames and whatnot. So I think that we're missing a big chunk of the characters here. I don't think we're not going to see the royal family, but I think we're going to see them. I think we'll see them in this block. They just haven't released that yet or told us. And I mean, let's face it, Amazon's really good at hiding stuff. They're really good at not telling us things because we see. I'll give you an example how the fans are. What is it you said, Ari, to me about the 2 shirts that I was sending out to Natty and Abel? They're on the same table. Are they filming together again, or are they together on set again? And I was like, no, that's pictures I sent to Juliet, and you were like, oh, okay. So we tear everything apart. Everyone really does. So they're very careful what they show us.
Yeah. Does anyone else here believe that that the royal family is just, they've been really good? The actors involved just haven't said anything, and we have, because we do have Kate Franz. They're mentioning this actor has shown up, in pictures with the other actors there in Prague. They just have not announced her, and no one's found her CV to see the name associated with her from the show. So yeah, I guess maybe that is the question on the table here. Anyone else in favor of this idea that they're going to be part of this block? We just don't know that they're there yet.
I think it's always been a question of whether they would bring in the Drakans or not, because they're only really in one scene in the book. And so I can see from their point of view being, do we hire all these actors for one scene and then have to hold on to them for a second season and pay them and so on? Or is it easier just to push them all the way back and bring them in season 2? And it's one of those things, you can introduce Elaine, I think, very easily in season 2, just in Tar Valon and Ygritte and 9 meter there. But then I think if you don't introduce Morghese and everyone else, you're then leaving it until much later on. When they show up, and then it's a case of how much do you want these characters set up early on, or not. So I think it's difficult. I think it's probably, for me, it feels like they probably should have Elaine in season 1, and the rest of them I think can be put off until later on. They could put all of them off. It just depends on how much time we're spending in Camelin, where they want to sort of like focus the story. Yeah, it's one of the things I'm waiting for is them showing us more information from 7 and 8, maybe getting those episode titles and the read through images from that, and we can then make a bit more guess about how they're going to be handling this. But my sense is probably we're not going to be seeing much of the Drakans, if at all, I think, in the first season.
Okay, I want to go around the table, and this is a big question. I mean, for those who are watching in chat, or later on, if you come upon this video, I'd love to hear your answer in the comments after we're done here. But for those of you that are in chat, are we going to see the Drakans? Any of them, thumbs up in season 1. If you do not believe we're going to see any of them, I guess it's thumbs down. So show me your thumbs here, everybody. Thumbs up if you think we're going to see. No, Adam, none of this like maybe. Thumbs down or thumbs up. Come on, Adam. You're still yeah. So I guess I should play the game too. I will say, at this point, I'm a thumbs down. I'm with Joe Perry, who said in chat, they're out of season 1 until I see proof otherwise. Yeah, I guess I'll wait to see if we have any proof otherwise. There are some things we don't know. I mean, Geeky, you bring up this all the time during your block breakdowns, which is they're doing a lot of work on sets that we just don't see, right? We're getting a little insight into locations that are outside of the stage, right? We're seeing places that other fans could potentially get access to, and otherwise they have it pretty locked down. We only get kind of one leak here, one leak there. So it is a curiosity here that we could have a lot of things going on we're just totally oblivious to at this point. So and so I saw you went thumbs up. You still believe the Drakans are going to be part of this, Geeky?
It's more thumbs up plus crossing my fingers.
Okay. The thumb crossing your thumbs.
Universe.
I love it. Yeah. So anything else that is of interest, I guess, for our viewers from a location standpoint when it comes to Block 2 before we move on from here? I know we had the entrance hall and the Empress Salon from the Chateau. How do you say this? Plaskovich or something? I'm not sure. Plaskovica, yeah. What do we think that entrance hall and Empress Salon is? That is related to this block. Does anyone have any speculation on what they're seeing? Yeah, John, go for it.
So I think the popular speculation at the time was it might have been the Andorian Palace, but I'm thinking more of the Amyrlin sitting room, because we know for sure we're getting a scene in the White Tower, because the interview I did with the extra, I don't know if she let it slip, but she told us that she was on set as a servant in the White Tower, and Yosha was there. And she talked with him. Doesn't mean he was in filming or anything. He was just happened to be there, and she talked with him. So we know there's a scene, at least a scene in the White Tower. So where would they film that? What would it be? Well, we have a possibility of Lyanna and Swan being there in this block. Maybe they filmed them there in that time frame. Now, Ari, you would know better than me the time frames if that matches up or not.
I would need to know more information on when your extra filmed.
That's really problem.
She wouldn't tell me.
So,
She wouldn't tell me exactly when she was there, which is unfortunate.
so yeah, since we don't have that, but it's interesting that you're bringing up the fact that we do at least know from that piece of information that up to episode 6, at least. I know it could be filming a scene that shows up in episodes 7 and 8. So yes, we know that's possible.
It's possible.
But it's suggestive that up to episode 6, we are going to get a scene in the White Tower. So at least for me, as I don't know, I look at these things like, okay, episodes 1 and 2, maybe we get to Shatter Logoth. Episodes 3 and 4, we're getting a split. But I haven't heard a lot of you say we're getting everyone back together. Like the gang from Emmons Field, from what I can tell, none of you have suggested this. They're all getting back together by the end of season or episode 4. Does anyone here believe that that's happening? Still broken up by the episode. Okay, I'm seeing like, yeah. you're all answering like 2 of my questions, so I've seen lots of yes. Yes, it seems like we're all in agreement here. By the end of episode 4, they are still in disparate groups, which I do think that the facts of Block 3, which we're about to tackle, will come to play and actually support that idea. That's where my theorizing went this morning as I was paying attention and watching Geeky Block 3. All of a sudden, I'm slowing way down compared to where I was at, whatever, 6 months ago, as far as where they're going. I feel like we are getting a lot more. If you think about the White Tower and the Logain sequences and still having everyone break up into groups, and we're getting the traveling people and the White Cloaks. Yeah, we're into episode 5 and we're still not that far. Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
We also haven't talked about if there's going to be any dreams in these 2 blocks, because we haven't gotten a Balsamon, and so do you think there's going to be dreams? Also throwing some dreams in there?
I have a strong opinion about this, but yeah, anyone else feel like, and for those in chat, while someone else is answering, thumbs up, we're still going to get dream sequences. What do you guys think? On chat here, Adam, do you believe we're going to see a significant amount of dreams because we get them a lot in the book?
Well, I mean, obviously we are going to see Balsamon, probably a stealth return for Billy Zane, almost certainly.
Bring back Billy.
But I think my thought was it might be more for episode 5, because I know episode 5's got that unusual title, Blood Calls Blood, which I think people were thinking was going to be, meaning we were heading into Great Hunt territory, but I think now it feels like we're not. And so the only other place that you could get the Blood Calls Blood and the Dark Prophecies and all that kind of material would be maybe combining that with the dream sequences with Balsamon. So I think that might be more than a 5 thing, but we could probably start seeing dream sequences, the first feelings that something weird is going on with Rand and Matt and Perrin sort of earlier in that. So I think we will see dreams. Maybe they might not be quite as prevalent as perhaps they are in the books.
And I can say this, I know for a fact, having recently gone through some of the answers that Rafe was giving, at least, to questions on Twitter, he certainly wants Tel'aran'rhiod and believes Tel'aran'rhiod should play a big role. So, or it should play a significant role in the show. So to me, that means absolutely, whether or not we're going to see a lot of them in season 1, that doesn't tell us anything necessarily, but it does suggest that he believes that it's important. Any other thoughts on dreams that anyone wants to bring up before we move on from that? Okay. Other items from this block 2. Was there anything else here that you think is useful for viewers to, basically understand why we're kind of charting this way we haven't discussed yet? Okay. Great. Then it sounds like it's the moment. Let's move on to Block 3, episodes 5 and 6. Let me show who we have here and what it might portend. We have Rand and Egwene, Matrim, Nynaeve, Perrin, Moiraine, Lan, Ida, Aram, Loyal, Logain, Kareen, and we have Stepan, and we have Lyanna and Leandrin, Alana, Ivan, and Maxim. Maxim being Alana's second warder. And then we have, in yellow, or lightly tinged, I guess, orange, I guess, if you're looking at the screen, we have Basil Gill, we have Rayan, Geoffrey, and Swan. And then in red, we have Aemon, and Min. So that's kind of our grouping together here. Let's keep this image up just for a second. And maybe Geeky, I should move down to Jen here as far as starting us off on a block here. Jen, what does this portend for you as far as episodes 5 and 6? Where do you see the broad strokes going?
I see them coming back together in Camelin, but like I said, I don't think that the royal family is going to be in it. And honestly, if we didn't have Basil Gill, we didn't even have any sense that Camelin was going to be in the story at all. So that's what's throwing me off about that. But I think they will get back together in Camelin, and based on I'm just looking at the cast again. We are going to get obviously more Aes Sedai scenes. I don't know where Maxim comes into it. If she bonds him at some point during this, since he didn't appear to be in Block 3. Not quite sure about that, but and Loyal being there. Assuming Rand will meet Loyal at this point in Camelin too. Yeah,
I mean, I feel like Loyal and Basil Gill actually tell us a lot, which is, hey, Camelin, yay! We're gonna get there, which does suggest to me that we are gonna see Camelin. But how quickly, John, do you think we're gonna get to Camelin? Is that episode 5 or episode 6? Do you believe?
I think it'll be in episode 5. I think we'll see them leaving Camelin together by the end of that episode, if that makes any sense.
By the end of episode 5, you think we'll be leaving Camelin? Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone disagree with that idea from a speculation standpoint? And if so, why?
I love crickets.
Don't make me disagree. I'm going to disagree with you. I'm disagreeing with you.
I disagree too.
Okay, Jen, go for it. Yeah, go for it.
I don't know. I think I still had like Egwene and Perrin getting out of the White Cloak camp, that whole scene, then Random just getting there. Then I have him seeing Logain, and he has this, I think they're still going to have that procession where he sees Logain and Camelin. I just thought there was a lot going on still in episode 5.
Yeah, you're bringing up an important piece of this, which is this idea of the White Cloak still being involved. Geeky mentioned, and everyone, I don't know if everyone saw the cut, but a lot of fans online that are really watching this on a daily basis saw that there was a leak of a video coming out of production showing a wolf attack a White Cloak. Now, Geeky, do we have reason to believe that when we saw that clip that it was happening in this block? And it didn't happen in Block 2?
It was posted on February 10th, which is in the middle of Block 2. And based off of the other posts that this person had released, it seems that they're pretty up to date with their posting of things online.
And wasn't there wolf dogs were also one of the? I thought there was they were using them during Block 3 also.
So the day we know about for Block 3, well, one of the days is February 7th. So February 10th was not too long after that. So my guess was that the video that we saw, the leaked video of the wolf attacking the White Cloak, was probably from the 7th.
Yeah. So when I think about this, and I think about what Jen just said, we all believed that they're all still broken up. I kind of wonder if in episode 5 we're going to see the rescue happen here. That we're going to see Moiraine and Lan rescue Egwene and Perrin, and I think all of them coming back together. Yeah, go ahead, Geeky.
So I did want to point out that we also get some Tinkers in at least episode 6. So we know they have to get from Tinkers to getting captured and then getting rescued.
Yeah, so you certainly could. Well, and you could say that the Tinker showing up in episode 5 or 6. Do we know for episode 6, or we're kind of, it's between one of those two? Is that correct?
It's between. So they appeared during the Block 3 filming. We had that article from Variety, I believe, that said Daryl McCormack was supposed to be in 3 episodes.
3.
So, I mean, you could break it up a lot of ways, but it could be 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6. If it's up to 6, that just seems like they're really dragging out the story to me. So it seems more likely that they'll probably start episode 5 with them leaving the Tinkers, and then have Perrin and Egwene continue on the rest of their journey.
So it's possible even that we won't get, and so that suggests to me that it's possible we won't get to Camelin, for some of them at least, until episode 6. Yeah, Adam, what are you thinking?
So my feeling about this is that the way they might handle it might be the 3 episodes might be 3, 5, and 6. So what they do in episode 3 is that it's the aftermath of Shadow Logoth, and we meet the Tinkers maybe towards the end of the episode. And then 4, we cut away mostly to Logain's story. And then 5 and 6, we resume with the various strands, Rand, Matt Perrin, and the rest of the regular cast. So if in effect you don't have to accommodate the story for episode 4, because that's going to be all mostly spent on Logain and the and his storyline in the Aes Sedai. So what we do in 5 and 6 is that you then go back to Rand and Matt on the Camelin Road, Perrin and Egwene meeting Elias and the Bulls and the Tinkers, and getting captured by the White Cloaks, and then perhaps being rescued as well. And then that might be more how they break it up. So that way you get it extended across 4 episodes, but they're only like 3 episodes worth of storylines. You're not dragging it out too much. You're just spending some time doing something else as well.
Yeah, it's absolutely believable that that's exactly how it would turn out. I think that is probably the way that I would support it. As I'm breaking that down, one thing I do want to bring up is we do know that Priyanka and Peter were talking about then they had videos of them waking up some morning. It was like snowy somewhere, and they were doing some scene either for episode 5 and 6, I would imagine. Is there anything? Do you think that that's like the end of the Logain kind of sequence? What do we think that we're seeing there as far as 5 and 6 having to do with Priyanka and Peter?
Well, I mean, my feeling, sorry not to take over, but
jump for
it. my feeling for 6, because it's called The Flame of Tar Valon. So for episode 6, it makes sense to me that they go to Tar Valon, they take Logain there, he's put on trial. We meet Swan for the first time and Leanne. It's possible we see them earlier, but my feeling is that it makes more sense in an episode called The Flame of Tar Valon. That's where we meet the Amlin Seed for the first time. And so that's going to be part of episode 6. Because there was this odd thing that early on that Logain's actor, I think when it was first announced, there was this report that he might be in 4 episodes. And I think the casting agency very quickly deleted that. So whether that's actually incorrect or whether that was they were leaking something and Amazon weren't happy about it and told them to delete it, that's something else that's sort of like could be interesting. It's
very believable that 4 episodes. Yeah, I would absolutely believe a 4-episode arc here. I mean, to this point, I like the idea that maybe they're on their way to Tar Valon and they're bringing him there, and that's what we get to. Geeky area, is that what you think is happening with this sequence with Priyanka and Peter being together? Do you see the Flame of Tar Valon actually being related to them and had the scene that we see them filming in this block?
So specifically, are you talking about the day where they were in the snow, right?
Yeah, they're in the snow. Yep.
Honestly, I have no idea what that particular day was about, but I definitely do think that we are going to see the Amyrlin Seed in episode 6, the Flame of Tar Valon, for the first time. I personally kind of hope it's not actually in Tar Valon, because it takes a long time to travel there, and I don't want them to mess up the timelines too much this early into the series. I mean, hopefully never, but
but that's only if that we're getting. It depends on where we end, right? With episode 8, because the traveling that you're talking about could happen. She could be arriving at the beginning of season 2. Right, so they could have a sequence here potentially where the actual Swans part of this does not happen anywhere near Faldara potentially. Jen, how do you think this is playing out when it comes to still having Priyanka and Peter in this sequence of 5 and 6? Do you think this is just the end of the battle, or where do you place this?
Well, I was thinking that they could be with the Aes Sedai if they're bringing Logain to Camelin. They could be in that. But then I don't know if this is what you were talking about, Ari, that if they're in Camelin in 5 and then in Tar Valon in 6, is that weird? Like, are those places
that's weird.
Close enough to each other? Like, I think the traveling between Tar Valon and Faldara is fine, because I think there's enough time, and it's probably going to be the beginning of season 2. But to go from Camelin to Tar Valon in 1 episode might be a little too fast. So I'm not even quite sure about that.
Well, and that brings us to the question then, and maybe I'll throw it to John. Are we going to see Logain and Camelin? Is it going to happen?
I would like to say yes, because it was such a really cool sequence in the books. But we may not. They may not do that at all, because we have potentially Lyanna and Swan there, and then we have the Flame of Tar being the title of that episode. But we also have Leandra in there. So Kate Fleetwood, we know, is in block 3 and in block 4. So if they don't get into the second book, which is where we really honestly meet her character, then I think that we may see a lot more of her with Logain, sort of being the setup for she's whispering in his ear and making him the dragon. Because that becomes a big thing later on in the books, as those of you who read the series know, that's invalidates the new Amerlin's stance and gives the rebels what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is respect. Gives the rebels validity, I guess. So I think we'll see some of that, and I think that we're not going to actually see them in Camelin, but they'll be on their way to Tar-Valon, and we'll see them in Tar-Valon instead, because that makes the timelines work a lot better.
Yeah, maybe, and maybe this goes to everybody that they're in chat right now. Yeah, give me a thumbs up if you think that we're going to get Logain in Camelin. According to everything that we know at this point, that we've broken down from a speculation standpoint, do you think we're seeing that kind of iconic scene happening in Camelin or not? Thumbs down if you think that no, the news is telling you that we're, at least from now, you're not. And yeah, Jen, you had a comment you want to make?
I just wanted to say one thing. The only reason I think we will see him there is because I thought that when you just had your episode with Christy and you guys were reading that scene, didn't Sarah say in the comments, like, if she was a writer, she would, this is a big, important moment, and she would press the importance of this moment. So I was like, is that like
is that a hint?
To me, that like put off a light bulb, like, well, she was there, so maybe she did press the importance of that. So I don't know. Maybe it happens in a different location, but I don't know.
Yeah,
that
quickly, for those that are watching, if you don't know what Jen's talking about, first of all, Sarah Nakamura is the Wheel of Time TV consultant and fan of the show, and she was in chat during our live table read that we did, where we had a friend, fan, and writer actually come in and write a scene from Camelin, and we did a whole table read with it. And yeah, she made that comment. That doesn't tell us anything. It's certainly a good speculation. And maybe to this piece, Geeky, do you have a thought? Because episode 5, I think I might have said episode 5 was the Flame of Tar-Valon. It's episode 6 is the Flame of Tar-Valon. Episode 5 is Blood Calls Blood. Does anything that we've talked about here, I mean, you look at all of the news and leaks and speculation, make any sense of that title of that episode? To you, at least.
I used to have a theory that it was a flashback with the blood snow, but now I don't know what to think anymore.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, Blood Calls Blood. Yeah, so you think that and this is, I've heard people talk about this before, a flashback scene perhaps in episode 5 where we actually do go back to, were you talking about Rand's birth? Is that what you were saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so am I seeing for the three of you, do you think that Blood Calls Blood relates to Rand's birth and on Dragonmount? I'm seeing shaking heads. No. Okay, Geeky, you're out there. I'm on the edge. I'm right here. I'm like, yes, I could totally see them doing that, which is getting us to Tar-Valon in the sense of giving us some history of what this whole thing is, why this is all happening now, why Logain, why this is a big deal. So I could see a flashback there, absolutely related to that. I do wonder, and we know that Swan, a younger Swan, has been cast. Mm-hmm. But we don't have any reason to believe yet, if I'm not mistaken, that she's been part of any of these episodes, do we? No. So we know that she's been cast, so I can't throw her in here as potentially like calling back to the past of somehow, and them doing a scene like that. So I do want to now call out from a Block 3 perspective. There's a lot we haven't covered as far as locations and interesting things that happen. Before I tell you my speculation about everything that I heard in Geeky Area's video, what captivates you, Adam, at least? Is there anything else here when it comes to this block where you're like, okay, we haven't talked about this and this is important for these episodes?
I mean, the main thing that comes to mind for me is where Min first appears. So as far as we know, she's not in Baerlon. So the logical place to introduce her would be in Basil Gill's instead, which I think is a very logical idea, because if she's in Baerlon, she meets Rand for like, half an hour or something, and then they don't see each other again for ages. Whilst if she's in Basil Gill's inn and Matt and Rand stay there for several days, then that gives you more sense of a connection between them, and they spend more time talking. So I think that's an idea that I really like, that they sort of like meet. That's where we're introduced to Min, and then when Moraine shows up with the rescued Perrin and Egwene, and they go along to the inn, and that's where Moraine and Min have their interaction that they would have had in Baerlon. So I think that, so for me, that feels like a really logical choice. If you're going to bring him in later, that's where I think would be a good idea to introduce her.
Remind me, Geeky, do we have any reason to believe that Kai may have been there during this block?
Hard to say either way. She did have some posts during that time, but it was infrequent enough that it's very plausible she could have flown out to Prague, filmed, and then flown home.
Yeah, it could be like
time period.
A very short time period. Yeah, we don't know for sure, but yeah, I think that's reasonable. Around the table here, you can give me like head shakes. Do you think that we're going to meet Min in Caemlyn first? Is that I can see a thumbs up from John. I see some Jen, some Geeky kind of.
I like the idea. Yeah. I definitely do.
It is a good idea.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of data to prove that that's going to happen. For those of you that are in chat, kind of curious, you can give a thumbs up if you think that that's likely, or just tell us where you think that Min we'll see Min first. I know a lot of people, I know Tom, as part of the talk around here, Tom really believes in the Faldara theory, which is that's where we'll meet her. Yeah. So the other big things I want to call out here are clearly the Waygate. That we haven't talked anything having to do with the Waygate yet. But we know, for those of you that are watching, I mean, I shouldn't say we know because we're not part of the crew, but it looks like a Waygate, and we're told that at least horses were jumping through this, so it doesn't sound like a portal stone. But there is an image out there. If you've searched for it, if you just go watch Geeky Yeri's video, you will see an image of what we're all fandom believes is probably a Waygate, and that Moiraine or Rosamund Pike was there. Loyal was there, definitely. And it seems to be that she's coming through that Waygate. That would not make any sense unless it related to Faldara. So are we all on board here, at least from a how episode, this episode block is going to end? Do you think we're smashing to black through the Waygate? Or do you think the Waygate's happening earlier, and so we're going to have events that happen after they come out of this Waygate? Maybe I'll go with you, Jen, first. Yeah.
I think we'll see them come through the Waygate, and that might be the end. I don't know if they'll actually get to Faldara until episode 7, or they might just get there. Like, I don't think anything much is going to happen, but I think we'll see them exiting that Waygate.
And anyone believe differently? John, you were going to say something.
I was actually going to say pretty much the same thing. I think that they're going to exit the Waygate in Faldara, and that's how it's going to end. Like, it'll be them like opening up. You'll see the Borderlands, and then it'll cut it.
Gotcha. You think that they'll get through, and then we'll basically just about get to Faldara. Geeky Yeri, do you feel differently? Do you think the Waygate's coming in earlier, and then we're getting something else there?
The part that puzzles me is if they just end the episode, or episode 6, with them coming through the Waygate, what's the steam baths all about? Because I know that could be another place, but that seems very Shinaran bad to me.
So I have a theory on this, and I'll share it, I guess. Because I've been thinking a lot about this today. Because I wondered if we were going to get to Faldara by this point. But it's something, Geeky, you said in your video, which did make sense to me. They've been running now for 5 episodes, let's say. Let's say we get to Caemlyn by episode 5 or 6, in that range. It would make sense for them to take a break, right? Just from a pacing standpoint, having them breathe a little bit in Caemlyn. I could absolutely see the bath scenes be in Caemlyn. In fact, you bring up the puppeteer and the barber. Them actually kind of getting a little, the barber coming into play. The puppeteer, if you think about it, could be related to the scene that we get with Kyrian in The Great Hunt. And they could have taken this idea because we know Trollocs are around Caemlyn, and that pushes them. So we could actually get Trollocs in the street, and we could actually have Trollocs in the street push them to get to the Waygate because they run into it, and the Trollocs are actually in Caemlyn, and they have to leave. So I absolutely believe that Rafe could have taken that scene and said, that's a cool scene. Where it happens is not as impactful as if it happened here in Caemlyn. That's my theory. And Adam, what do you think about this idea? The puppeteers and the Trolloc scene that we get in Kyrian actually happening in Caemlyn and being part of what pushes them out of Caemlyn.
Yeah, I mean that's the reason why I did it. That's what I think I was talking about earlier on. That there may be much bigger picture changes than I think people are thinking of at the moment. So I think that this is a point they made previously, is that if we expect the show to run for 6 or 7 or even 8 seasons, they're going to have less than half. Well, they're going to have less episodes than Game of Thrones did to tell a story that's twice as long. So this idea of taking bits and pieces from different parts of the story and push them in different places, and sort of merging bits that are quite similar together in different ways, I think is a really interesting idea. It's a way of that they get more of the story from the books on the screen, but do it in a way that you can tell the story in a more efficient manner. So that's one of those ideas that they take elements from Korean and put it into Cayman or whatever, in that way. So that sounds like to me like could be quite a good idea. I mean, one of the ideas I've seen floated around is that there may be is there a possibility that they just don't go to Cayman? Could they actually be sort of merging it with Tar Valon and the characters go to Tar Valon instead? And there's a lot of reasons why that seems like it wouldn't work, because it's like, why would Moiraine take them so close to the White Tower? Or do they actually merge somehow into the Lagain storyline and they actually travel with them to Tar Valon and then something else happens? And that's like a really huge change.
That'd be huge.
Which makes me think, ooh, would they actually do that? But then you start thinking, well, you know, could they meet Basil Gill in Tar Valon instead and meet Min there instead? And it avoid maybe if they are having Tar Valon scenes, maybe they're thinking we don't want to have too many different cities set up right at the front. Maybe we want to just focus on one place rather than others. So I don't know. That's one idea. For me, that feels really like too big a change. For me, it feels like you need to establish Cayman early on because it's such an important place in the story.
I like them.
And you need.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and my thought was that you can't have Cayman and Tar Valon merged for the entire story. They are two separate places, two separate functions.
I like them setting up Camelin this early. Whatever they do in Camelin, we don't know about the Trakans yet. I like this idea because we actually do in part of this video, and I saw this, I can't remember who it was Matilda in a chat said, like, now I don't know what they're talking about. Like, there are reports, and like I said, you should go back afterwards and watch this in Geeky Area's video. There have been reports about the extras, you know, the extra company is looking for people like, hey, we need a puppeteer, we need a barber on this date here. We don't know exactly why they're saying those things. We do have a report from an extra that I want to bring into this conversation and then go to Jen and see what you have to think, that Rosamund Pike was riding through a street scene potentially on a stage, and it sounds like it's probably Camelin because it was during this cut. So I think about it as Camelin. It could be Faldara, but it does sound like a city of some sort. Now, yeah, it could be some town on the way. It could, I guess. But by episodes 5 and 6, it struck me as this all makes sense. You add the harbor, the puppeteer, Moraine's being seen on a street somewhere. We have the Waygate. We have Loyal. It just screams Camelin to me. How are you feeling about this? Or do you think that some of these events, some of these things are in Faldara, Jen?
No, I was thinking that most of this was happening in Camelin. Definitely. Yeah, just because I think the Waygate is probably the end of episode 6.
Am I missing anything here, Geeky Area, that is of interest from this block that we should bring up that might have something to do with how these episodes turn out?
I can't think of anything. Can anybody else think of anything?
Oh, I just saw one that I want to bring up because you do mention this. It hasn't been talked about much about fandom. So, John, I want to ask you: the rock sculptures in the rock sculptures come up in this block. Is it Leap? I don't know how to say it. Libachov, or I don't know how to pronounce it.
I can't pronounce it.
I have a terrible pronunciation, but these rock sculptures, what do you think that they might relate to? Do you have a theory on this?
The rock sculptures, to me, initially were what I thought would be where Egwene and Perrin were sheltering in the steading for the night, and the White Cloaks, and the big fight with them, and where Hopper dies. That's what I thought initially.
Yeah.
I can't place them anywhere else in the first book other than a dream sequence. So I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna have to stick with that, even if the timings don't quite match up. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, if you want to see what we're talking about, these rather large rock, I don't know what you call them, sculptures that do kind of have a Steading-esque feel to what happens when the White.
And there is a cave there as well with more carvings inside. And I know that in the books they're sheltering in the hand. Maybe they go in the cave with the cool carvings behind them too. It's possible.
Love it. That's totally a great. I love that idea. I absolutely believe that this really, it smells like a steading kind of scene from what the books, from what actually happens there. Geeky, was that where you were at when you saw these sculptures? Are you in favor of this idea that it's a steading?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's probably a steading.
So if I understand correctly, we're talking steading. The steading they run into episode 5. Like I feel like I've totally just completely slowed down so much more than I ever imagined. The idea that, remember when we used to be in some world where we thought they could get to the end of the Great Hunt by episode 8?
That was me.
No, but it's as this is more revealed, right? It's really interesting to kind of break this down into a way that people can understand it. If for those of you that are watching, if you don't understand what we're talking about, again, go watch the block videos. You'll understand how we're piecing this all together. And after this live stream, I think sometime earlier this week, maybe I'll throw together like a quick 8-minute just run through of everything we just discussed and why we believe a certain timeline, so you can get it that way. But yeah, so I think it's time to move on then to block 4. Let's show what we know. They're actually filming Block 4 right now, so we don't know much. We do know that Rand, Egwene, Matrim, Nynaeve, and Perrin Loyal, Moiraine, Lan, Leandrin, and Min are involved in this block. So, Adam, you're the last one. I haven't started off first with the Block 4. What is this, just broad sweep, what do you think we're going to run into, knowing these characters, knowing where we're at, perhaps, in episodes 5 and 6? What does episodes 7 and 8 look like to you?
I think this is the sort of the $1 million question is, when you get to this point, it's like you assume that just from where the book ends, and it's a great sort of like cliffhanger and climax, and that would be where season 1 probably ends as well, just because it is also a great cliffhanger and climax. It would be odd if you had like episode 7 is sort of like the entirety of the Fal Dara and the Blight and the Green Man and everything else, and then episode 8 you're starting a new story. That doesn't feel right. It feels like this is where the sort of the Eye of the World ends. The only problem is that it feels like 2 hours to do might be almost too much to do all that material. So for me, it makes more sense that the Ways is the focus of episode 7, and they actually spend maybe half the episode in the Ways, and we have all the material that's happening in that story there. And maybe we cut away to Tar Valon. Maybe there's more stuff going on with the Loghain storyline and the Aes Sedai there, which is one possibility to fill up the time. And then 8, then maybe they get to Fal Dara halfway through episode 7 or towards the end of it, and then episode 8 is more the actual climax of the story. I know a lot of people feel that we should be getting more of a move on and we should get into Great Hunt material faster, but I just can't see a way of doing that, which doesn't feel sort of anticlimactic. One idea I think someone said is that they actually do the start of the Great Hunt in episode 8, and season 1 ends with the Amelin Seat telling Rand that he's the Dragon Reborn, and that's the cliffhanger, and that gets you a little bit more of the way into the Great Hunt. But the main problem with that, I think, is because I believe we know pretty firmly that the actor playing Paden Fane is only in episode 1. He's only doing 1 episode for season 1. And for me, it's very difficult to have him not there and then start the Great Hunt, the dagger being stolen storyline. I think you can't really do that without him there. He's just off screen. That feels a bit weird. So for me, I think 7 and 8 is just going to be taking us up to the end of the Eye of the World. And then for me, that in 7 is probably Ways, 8 is Fal Dara and the Blight.
You bring up an interesting point, which is they do have a lot of time. If you think about how much ground they could cover in 2 hours. I'm kind of curious about this. John, how do you feel about this idea? They have 2 hours. Do you think this is just going to be the end of the story, either a little bit of the Ways and then Fal Dara and Tarwin's Gap? You think they're going to play up Tarwin's Gap? Like, how do you think they're going to fill this 2 hours?
The thing that no one has mentioned yet is the Chosen. Like, we haven't talked. No one has talked about them yet. We haven't seen a casting for them. We haven't even thought about them being in the show, but they kind of have to be in season 1. You have to introduce at least some of them. So I'm wondering if maybe they take episodes 7 and 8 and they cut away, and we may see them plotting. We may introduce some of them first. We may get a little bit of backstory from some of them, which would be great. I would love that. Or or we don't see, and we've talked about this, me and you, Matt, before, we don't see Agenor at all in the Eye of the World.
It's possible.
because they just show up, and they're like, one of the things that I didn't like about the book series is the bad guys were a little 2D until much later on. And you can't have that for a TV show, because if they don't feel real and they don't feel like a threat, then people aren't going to believe it and like it. So yes, there's a lot of time the last 2 episodes, but I think we may start seeing them introduce Agenor. They may start introducing some of the other chosen that we're going to see at the Eye of the World, some of their backstory, how the Shadow Spawn were created. We may see Sheo Ghul. I think we're going to see that stuff there that isn't necessarily in the book, as more of a way of explaining the big bads at the end. But I do really like the idea of the Amyrlin Swan saying, "You're the Dragon Reborn," and then wait 8 months for season 2.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. You bring up an interesting point. The Forsaken, or as you named them, the Chosen. That's right. It all just kind of depends how you feel about them. They're
my people.
I know. I understand. I'm a groupie for Lanfear. Let's be honest. So I think this idea. I will point this out because Rafe did say this as they were writing. I think in 2018. He talked about really liking Ashamael's story and embedding in it a bit, like he was writing in Ashamael's mind and liking him. Does that make sense? Like kind of like Brandon and Robert Jordan talk about getting the character itself, liking the character they're writing. I kind of felt like that's how his answer was. So I definitely believe that we're seeing Ashamael. And Adam, you brought up this piece, which is true. Padan Fain, right? From the beginning, he had a 1 episode arc. It doesn't make any sense to lose him unless they just cut him. That's possible. I guess we all have to accept the possibility that just means Padan Fain doesn't exist. Unless that's happening, it doesn't feel like we're getting too far in. So knowing those things, I think it's likely we are maybe digging into the Forsaken a bit. That would make sense to me. And I want to go both to you, Jen and Geeky with this question. Jen, what does 7 and 8 look like to you at this point? Because we don't really have as much as we have in the other blocks.
I thought episode 7 would start with them getting there, and then, we see Faldara a little bit, then they head into the Blight. I think there's a lot that they could do in the Blight. Then I was getting them to the Eye of the World. I was cliffhangering episode 7 when they come out and have Agenor and Balthamel waiting for them outside. So then episode 8 would be the remainder of that, and then maybe the last half hour would be like a wrap up, like a condensing. And I think that the season should end with the Dark Friend social.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
I like that idea.
I don't know if we should see Leandrin is there, and that could be we didn't know she was bad until that moment. Because I feel like in all of Great Hunt, it's not a big surprise that she's evil. So I think that would be a cool reveal for the end of the season.
I think I had a theory that Leandrin actually kills Karine Nagashi. That's my theory, and that we do know that. She
I would like to see
that.
that.
We do know.
I love that because we already know. I love the idea because we do know that she's out here, right? So for those of you that are watching, why do we believe Faldara comes next? Because Rafe talks about one of his favorite sets being Faldara, and we haven't talked about Faldara yet. As far as we know, we haven't gotten there, so it makes a lot of sense when there's a Waygate involved in episode 5 or 6 that Faldara comes next. So knowing we're going to get Faldara and that Leandrin is part of this sequence, that doesn't mean it's happening in Faldara, but I do love this idea, Jen. I brought this up. Leandrin's there. Could there be a Dark Friend social and we get a little interaction between Ashamael and Leandrin, basically, and talking about or seeing that whole Dark Friend social? I love that as a smash to black, if you will, moment of way of ending it, because I want everyone to, it's that whole build up of okay, they've won, and then you see this room of 100 Dark Friends, of all over the world going out and sowing chaos, and you kind of want to know what's going to happen next. Geeky, do you think that it's going to be any different than what's been proposed here, or do you have a different twist on what episodes 7 and 8 might look like?
I think I'm thinking along the same lines as Jen. I would really like to see them build more on the battle, the prep for the battle at Tarwin's Gap, and also the travel through the Blight, because they could do some really amazing things with the design of the Blight, showing the different dangers. And we never really spend a whole lot of time in the Blight, correct me if I'm wrong, that much later in the series. So this would be kind of their one chance to really show what it's like. So I would like them to expand upon that, because I really felt like in the book it was really rushed near the end.
Yeah.
But anytime you have a battle, you can really stretch out the time, I think, in a visual media. And so having the battle going simultaneously with their journey through to the Eye of the World, I think that would be nice juxtapose on TV, and then ending at the Eye of the World, or ending episode 7 at the Eye of the World. That would be a nice way to open the last episode, I think.
Yeah, I hashtag blight life. Yes, I totally agree with this idea. Sorry, I love seeing this stuff. Delusions, great hashtag. Yeah, absolutely. This, considering how they're pacing this, that makes sense to me, right? Like, why, like Adam said, and Geeky, like you're saying, like, why would they just rush into the Great Hunt at this point? Like, they'd be starting a whole new story. It wouldn't make sense to end there. So why not just embed in Tarwin's Gap, embed in the Forsaken, embed in Faldara? They're going to create that set. You'd think they're going to want to, if you think about the sets so far that I've heard, is Edmund's Field. We're going to get maybe Shadar Logoth. We're going to potentially get the Steading a bit, Camelin, the traveling people. Wherever the battle's happening with Loghain, we're going to get Tarvalon and Faldara, And so I can see them really embedding in Faldara a little bit, really embedding in that culture and showing us that piece. I can actually see that happening. So then I have one last question is, for you all, as far as this first season's concerned, the Seanchan, are they going to show up in season 1 at all? Do you think we're going to get a hint? Do you think we're going to get a scene? I kind of wondered if one of those palaces they talked about, like we're shooting in the chateau or whatever, was actually a Seanchan scene back in like episode 4. I wasn't sure if they were going to show us like a little sequence over there. So I'm seeing lots of no's. No, anyone for a yes for this idea? And kind of in chat, give me a thumbs up if you think we're going to get any Seanchan in season 1. Thumbs down if you don't agree with that. Adam,
domain.
Oh, sorry,
No.
John, you're like no. Adam, are you a no also on this? No Seanchan?
Yeah. I think there might be a hint, which I think, if the Blood Calls Blood episode title is a hint that we're going to hear the Dark Prophecy earlier than we do in the books, then maybe they might mention the Watchers on Toman Head and everything else, and that could be a vague hint towards it. Especially if they've got Arthur Hawkins' statue in it as well. Maybe they can add some dialogue there talking about the armies that went across the Araf Ocean, and that's just a little bit of a setup for season 2. I think seeing the Seanchan on screen is not going to happen in season 1. I think there's this thing in TV production about fighting your battles, and if you're bringing in a whole other culture and you've got to design their armor, you've got to design their helmets, you've got to think about CGI for the Seanchan animals if you're going to be having them on screen, you've got to cast multiple characters as well. It just feels to me like it's too much to do in the first season on top of everything else. So it feels to me that that's going to be more of a season 2 storyline bringing Seanchan.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I agree with everyone. I'm seeing everyone's thumb down on this idea. I think maybe they'll talk about them. I could see in Tarvalon the scenes there where they mentioned that they're hearing rumors of something. I could see that, so it doesn't come as such a surprise to viewers. Like, they're aware of something, but they don't go there. And I do see one last question that we didn't cover. Geeky, I'll go to you on this question, and then to Jen and John. The Aiel, Rafe mentioned we're going to meet an Aiel, and that it would shock us. And he said Amazon probably shouldn't let him tweet during, I think it was during a time when he was ill and at home. We're going to meet an Aiel in season 1. Geeky, do you have a theory on what this is and where we might meet this Aiel?
Based off of nothing at all, but just for fun, I think it would be nice to see the Aiel that visits the Tinkers and tells them about the threat to the Eye of the World. So bringing that into the present, having Perrin and Egwene there to witness that would really be nice to see it on screen instead of hearing other people tell us about it.
I think that's absolutely a target for where that might happen. Anyone else Jen, you have a different idea about this? Do you think it's going to happen with the traveling people? No?
I was going to say the same thing, except if not that they meet him or her in person. It was a female, I think. Not that they meet her in person, that maybe Rain is telling them the story and we kind of like cut to it, because I think it happens in the Waste, or in the book at least. So if so either that or like a cut to it happening, and telling the story. But yeah, I think it's that idea.
I saw this show up in chat, and I'll answer this. It's not Rand.
It's not Rand,
The person
no.
asking
That's
Rafe the
shocking.
question. The person asking Rafe the question actually counted out, like they said, not including Rand, and or somehow I think it turned out that way. So basically, it's an Aiel that is not Rand, as far as I understand. Yeah, John, where are you at with this idea?
I think it's those Aiel, the Maidens of the Spear, because in the books they went to the Blight, they killed a whole bunch of Trollocs, and then they were going back into, or they're in the Waste, I think, one or the other. But I think we're going to see them in the show in the Blight, killing Trollocs. I think during episode 7 and 8, where they're going to be pushing through the Blight, at some point they'll come across a band of Maidens of the Spear. Maybe during a battle, they'll help with the battle a little bit, because that again could lengthen the episode a bit. And then we'll see the surprise Aiel, like half dead, tell them the story themselves, and then they're like, "Oh, we really need to get there now," and then they'll carry on.
So no one's a fan of Blood Calls Blood, and we're gonna get Aiel.
It's Abby. She's definitely shown up in Camelin. She's already with Elaine.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be shocking.
I guess technically maybe he wouldn't call Tigraine an Aiel, but maybe, and so maybe he's playing with us there. You're going to see a flashback to Rand's birth? I don't know. That's interesting. For you, Adam, a last note here. Are you a fan of any of these theories about the Aiel, or where, if not, what's your idea?
I think the flashback to Rand's birth is probably a season 2 thing. I think for season 1, it feels like they're really, really pushing the idea that you don't know it's Rand for the uninitiated non-book reading audience, and that they really want to make it more of a mystery, whether it's Rand or whether it's Perrin or whether it's Matt, and they'll play that up maybe a bit more. So that to me makes me think that we probably won't be getting the so like the flashback. We might not even be getting Tam's fever dreams, which is something I hadn't thought about before. But if they're trying to keep it more of a mystery, so I think the logical place to meet the Aiel would be in with the Tinkers. That seems to me to make sense. But I do like the idea that they meet the Aiel themselves, and it's not a second-hand or third-hand story being told to them, but they actually meet them somewhere themselves, whether it's in the Blights or maybe on Caroline Grass or somewhere else. That's actually quite an interesting idea, and it makes it a little bit more dynamic. I think in TV, you always, a lot of this thing is saying, can you not have this as exposition and not have this as a flashback? Can you have it actually happening to our characters that we're already invested in? And that's something that they do like changing. So that's quite an interesting idea.
Yeah, it's so fascinating, because everyone's talking about this, like, shock. What would be shocking? What would be shocking to us? Are any of these shocking enough? So this is the fun thing. This is one that we'll continue to be able to speculate until the show airs and we see when this Aiel comes into play. That'll be a lot of fun, unless we happen to get some hint that from somebody out there on the internet that ends up sharing some piece of news about this. This is a fun one, and I look forward to finding out what Rafe was talking about. I know those of you that are watching, normally this is a live call and talk show. We're not doing calls tonight. There's just too much stuff to cover from blocks 1 through 4. And in fact, I was going to try to get into season 2 a bit and see what our speculation there was. We're almost past time here. Maybe I'll give each of you 30 seconds. You have to do it in 30 seconds. And John, I'm going to start with you, because I can tell you really want to say this. 30 seconds. You have 30 seconds. Tell me if this is where we're ending. Because it sounds like all of us are around the idea of we're ending basically book 1-ish.
Yep.
Season 2, give me your broad 30-second stroke. Where are they going with season 2?
We'll see them in the tower. We'll see Egwene leave the tower. I think we'll finish season 2 at the end of the Great Hunt, because that's a great way to end it. And I think we'll see all of the events of the Great Hunt. And we may also see parts of the Dragon Reborn in season 2 as well, because they like doing storylines, specifically more towards the Aiel. Okay. I think we'll see more of that. That's my 30-second broad strokes.
Wow. Okay, broad strokes. We'll jump to you, Jen. Broad strokes. 30 seconds. What do you think we get in season 2?
I think we're getting like most of the Great Hunt the same way. It would be interesting if we were cutting to the Aiel to, obviously we have more White Cloaks in second book, so we'll be cutting to them, cutting back and forth everywhere. I do like the end of season 2, and we didn't actually talk about how this season would end, whether he's actually going to fight Ishamael or not. If he's going to fight him 3 times, hold it off in this season. I think the fight in the sky is pretty cool. I don't know how they're going to do that, but I think if they could find a way to make it work, it's cool. And I want to see the blowing of the horn at the end of season 2.
Okay,
I'd like to see that happen.
Interesting. So far, 2 of you think season 2 is mostly going to just cover the Great Hunt. Geeky, 30-second summary. Where do you think season 2 is going?
I agree with John and Jen. I think it's pretty much going to be the similar pace as this season, at least from what we've been seeing, and they're probably going to stick to the Great Hunt storyline. I don't really need the whole 30 seconds.
You're like, okay, Adam. Okay, last one, 30 seconds. Where do you think season 2 is going?
I'm not sure. I think The Great Hunt is actually shorter as a book than The Eye of the World by a reasonable amount. So I think there's more scope that you could do 2 and bits of 3. But again, I think just from a dramatic point of view, it's just too good a place to end 2 with the battle in the sky and everything else. So whether they might bring forward elements from 3 somehow into 2 in a different context, maybe. But I think that 2 will be sort of like, what we're expecting. So it will be Lanfear, I think, will play a big role. I think it will be the Sonchan. I think it will be Aeginin and Bail Domon if he's not introduced in season 1. I suspect he'll be introduced in season 2. And I think we'll get more sort of Pain and Fane and the dagger, and that will become more important. I mean, the one thing I think we haven't talked about at all is the non-appearance so far of Elida in season 1. And if she's not in season 1 at all, could they bring her in season 2? Because I don't think you want to leave it later than that to introduce one of your primary antagonists for that storyline. So that's another interesting thing to think about.
Okay, that was a little longer than 30 seconds, but we accept it. No, just kidding. Yeah, absolutely. No, I will give you I'll try to stay in 30 seconds. I think they completely are going to cut a lot of scope here. We're actually going to go to that portal stone. We'll take them to Toman Head. I think they'll follow Pat and Fane. They'll get to White Tower, but we'll get mid-season to the Seanchan and Falma. I think after mid-season, we'll probably get the blowing of the horn. I still think it's a great idea, but it's such an iconic moment. All fandom loves it. And then I think the second half of the season will get us back to the White Tower, and it'll get Rand going to the Stone of Tyr, and we'll end with a final climactic battle that's actually between Rand and Ishamael. I think the first 2 will not happen between Rand and Ishamael. So that's my quick season 2. I think they will need to actually get down the road more on the story. I can't imagine that they're going to give us only a season 2, mostly a single book at this point. So, but I could be wrong. All of you think that I'm likely wrong at this point. So we'll get more into this. If you're watching this, hopefully you've enjoyed it. Please like this video. If it's the first time you've been here or the second time and you're just not a subscriber, please do subscribe to the channel. It encourages us, like I said, to get up in the morning and decide to make more content and do more of these live shows. And thank you to all 4 of you for being here. This is fantastic. Hopefully we've left everyone with lots of questions, which is go watch Geeky Aries' video on this. I know John's done a lot of speculation videos on this. Jen and her podcast talk about this all the time, and Adam has written tons of blogs about these type of topics. So all of these individuals have content that talks about how this is going to turn out. If you are just like, I don't understand what the whole wolf dog thing is, or what sculptures they're talking about, you can find those details in each one of these pieces of content from these content creators. So please do go follow them. You can find their links in the description below. Hope you've enjoyed this. This will not be the last time we do it, but I think this actually has given me clarity on where season 1 is going. I hope all of you are feeling that same sense of clarity. And I guess we're just going to hope that we're going to get some more news between now and the end of production. But yes, production supposedly ends. You guys could tell me the exact date, but in December. Do we know a date here, Geeky Airy? Sometime in December, right?
Mid-December.
Mid-December, production will supposedly be over. Maybe they'll, I don't know, do some reshoots after that. Who knows? But production on episodes 7 and 8 are supposed to be done at that point. And then I guess it's hoping 2021 delivers the trailer and premiere.
Christmas Day this year, please.
Yeah, exactly. 2021, it's got to happen. Not 2022. That'd be too much. And you can always join us for an after show. We talk about all these things. If you have questions about this, meet us in Discord. You can find that link to the Dusty Wheel Discord channel in the description. Also, I'll be in there shortly after the show to chat with you. So that was such a great episode. Hopefully you all enjoyed it, and we'll see you next WoT Wednesday. So we say from the Dusty Wheel, good afternoon and smash to black.
If you want news and rumors that